Mali and Burkina Faso. These are two neighboring West African countries. What do they have in common? What are their differences? In this video, I put Burkina Faso and Mali side by side for you to be able to get to know these two West African countries. Whenever Burkina Faso is mentioned, my thought is usually about Thomas Sankara, and for Mali, I'm always reminded of the great Mali Empire and Mansa Musa, who is considered by economists and historians as the richest man to ever live on the planet Earth. We can't really go too far before we know where Mali gets its name from. Mali obviously gets its name from the great Mali Empire. Burkina Faso originally was named Upper Volta by the colonialists, but the late Thomas Sankara changed the name to Burkina Faso, which means land of the honest men or land of the honest people. The administrative capital of Mali is Bamako, while for Burkina Faso the administrative capital is Ouagadougou. As you can see right here, the West African region is featured on this map, and then you can see Mali here. We want to look at Mali and Burkina Faso. Both of them are neighboring countries. And what are the other countries that are neighbor to Mali? You have Algeria here, you have Mauritania, you have Senegal, you have Guinea, and then you have Cote d'Ivoire. Ivory Coast is just there, and then obviously you have Burkina Faso and Niger. These are countries that are neighbor to Mali. For Burkina Faso is obviously has Mali as the neighbor, and then you have Niger is a neighbor to Burkina Faso as well. You have Benin, and then you have Togo, you have Ghana, and then you have Ivory Coast. So these are the countries that are neighbor to Burkina Faso. Something we have to take note that Mali and Burkina Faso have in common is the fact that they are both landlocked countries. So if you look at here, right here, so this is kind of like a putting both of them together as inside one, almost like a boundary for Mali and Burkina Faso. What does landlocked mean? Landlocked basically means that any country that do not have any of their territory connected to ocean. So you see that, you know, all these countries right here along the coastline, you know, Senegal, Gambia, you know, Sierra Leone, Liberia, you know, all these countries, Guinea, you know, Togo, even up to Nigeria, up to Cameroon, and even Mauritania, they have part of their territory, you know, connected, you know, directly to ocean. So if a country don't have any direct you know, connection to ocean or sea, that means, you know, they are landlocked. And this is why Mali and Burkina Faso, they are both they do have this in common, that they are both landlocked countries. Another thing Burkina Faso and Mali have in common is that their official language for both of them is French, because both of them were former French colonies, so which means their official language is French. And this map right here you can see shows the number of coups d'etat since 1952 in African countries. So I'm just kind of like zooming into to have more focus on Burkina Faso and Mali. And you can see here Mali, they've had a coup d'etat 8 times, and then for Burkina Faso they've had a record 9 times. Obviously, you know, you have you know, like Sudan and Burundi as well, have had a lot, but we're talking about Burkina Faso and Mali here. You know, this just means that, you know, the number of times the military has been trying to take over, you know, government in these two countries, you know, so they are quite high. So that it just means that, you know, instability in the government in both countries. What is the main export of Burkina Faso and Mali? They also have this in common as well, because, you know, gold by far is the major you know, economic kind of like export for both countries, for both Mali and Burkina Faso. And then you have about 83% of you know, of Mali export is gold mining. So it's really a big deal. And then for Burkina Faso we have, you know, about 70% of so 70% of their main export is gold, and 83% for Mali. But this doesn't really mean that there are not other products. There are other products like cotton as well, and a lot of other products that they do have other natural resources like zinc, you know, nuts as well, cashew nut, Brazil nut. The major ethnic group in Burkina Faso is Mosi, and then you have Bambara in Mali. and both countries do have Fulani people as well, but you know, by the major ethnic group in each of these countries, and then you have all the list of other ethnic groups that they do have in these countries of Burkina Faso and Mali. In terms of land area, Burkina Faso is much smaller than Mali. So Mali is about 4.5 times bigger than Burkina Faso, and it's worth mentioning that some part of Mali land area falls into the Sahara Desert. Mali and Burkina Faso have a very similar figures in terms of their population. Islam is the dominant religion in both Mali and Burkina Faso. 95% of the population of Mali are Muslim, while for Burkina Faso is about 63% of the population are Muslims. For GDP and GDP per capita, both countries is really very similar, so there isn't really much difference in the GDP and GDP per capita of Mali and Burkina Faso. And GDP has to do with economy. It has to do with the economic activity going on in the particular country, and that stands for gross domestic product. And then when you're talking about GDP per capita, then you are taking into consideration the population of a particular country. And then when you take population into consideration, both countries, you know, their GDP and GDP per capita is really very similar. Another metric I really want to look at is Human Development Index. And Human Development Index is just basically a metric that is used to measure things like well-being, you know, the people of a country, you know, in terms of their healthy living and, you know, quality of life and all sort of things like that. And this is broken down into like 4 different parts. You have very high human development, and so which is mainly Mauritius really is the only country that is there. And then you have high human development, so the high you have Seychelles, Algeria and some other countries, and then you have medium. But for Mali and Burkina Faso, they are unfortunately at the lower parts. They are the low human development. So but even at the low as well, they're not even really at the top of the low. They are really down there at the lower part. And you know, Burkina Faso is slightly higher than that of Mali in terms of the score for Human Development Index. Hope you find this video useful. Thanks for watching and God bless.